we'll see if we can like do this here. So what we're trying to do is, as you can see, this is oh, I'm trying to tighten it up and I'm turning the wrong thing. So it won't slide. We have a stop up here, so that puts that gun, it stops here on this. Okay, you want to have that gun in the same place every time. So I might take a cleaning rod, get my target set up, run that across my sandbag through the center of the ears here and get it lined up just as perfect as I can. Now, I always used, as a matter of fact, this is the same old rest right here that I used till I retired and come down here. Then I got this. And I've always, I wore out my other bag, but I've always liked the leather, use leather. I use powder to keep the gun so that it'll slide in here. I don't want that gun sticking. Like I say, you never get too old to learn. You learn something all the time. I sure don't learn something every day, but quite often I do learn something. And I learned two things in the last 2 years that makes sense to me. When I get to use it, that it sure makes sense to me. And this is a friend of mine that some of you know, Donnie Gump. And like I say, in matches that we shoot aggregates. We shoot 5 times. So 5 times you got to go to that bench and set up your equipment. And you'd like to have that thing in the same place every time, right? Because the next time you come up there, you're going to spend time trying to get it all lined up again. Donnie says, you know what? They might get mad at me. Next time I shoot over there, I'm going to take me a little marking pen and I'm going to mark on that bench exactly where my legs are. I said to myself, duh. You're right. That's the smartest thing you can do. It saves you a lot of time. You're going to get back to the same place. You don't have to get your level out and level everything up. Another thing he told me, he says, you know what? He says, I just grabbed one of those dryer sheets that you put in a dryer. He said, I put that on my sandbag right there. Guess what? Instead of putting, on these here, I use silicone spray. On that, I use silicone spray. On this, I use powder. But you take one of those dryer sheets and put in there, and boy, you'd be surprised how that gun will slide right off of there. I learned something. Most important, why I never picked up on marking my bench that I'm going to have to go back to. I'm over here loading. I go back, and it's always a struggle to get lined up again because I want to be perfectly lined up. Dummy, mark your bench. So I learned something there just in the last year. Might not get to use it much now, but at least I learned something. So we learn something all the time. My friend that didn't make it tonight, he's 94 years old, just had his birthday last month, and I know he'd like to be here tonight. That God bless him. This is, I want to show you a target here. This is a target that I shot. Dave was there that day, and I don't know why Jim Nicholson's not here. Yeah. Well, you look at that target there, man, they give me a perfect score, all 10s. What do you think of that? Do you think that's a good target? Mike thinks it is, but it's not. Now, we shoot here, we got a different target. That 10 ring measures a ½ inch. You hit that thing in a ½ inch, you got a 10. Right here, I forgot to write down measurement. Oh, I can tell you what it is right now. And our 10 ring measures, if I can find one clean here, here we go.
I don't know where they got those at. This is what,
Well, if we had those, we'd win every time, do That's okay, everybody shoot the same one. This measures,
That's a tougher target.
110,000s. You gotta hit that 110,000s mark to get a 10 here.
Yeah, it's tough.
So if you look at that target, in comparison, this ain't nothing.
Yeah, this is
The
tough.
green one's worse.
Huh?
The green target,
Yeah.
there's
You have
four
to stay
sanctioning boxes
inside the
for
black.
DR.
To get a 10,
Yeah.
Yes, you can't be touching the black.
It's even
Right.
smaller.
I don't know how
I think
he
it's
does it.
like-
See,
it's like
he gives them a 10 here.
Well, that's only,
Yeah, 'cause
that's
it's
gonna
not
be a
touching
100
black.
right there. I was
10.
looking at it, but it looked at me.
He gives them a 10
I wanted
here.
110.
I'll tell you what he's
He
done.
is touching the black.
Well, if you touch that tiny ring,
Okay.
he gives you
You have
10.
to be touching the
Tiny
touch
ring.
any of the black
See
on that
here,
that
he's
doesn't
got
have-
it. He's well in the black here, but he touched
Yeah,
that tiny
yeah.
ring.
Okay.
Just
We're gonna
touch it.
talk
See, he didn't
about
touch
what,
it here.
what that record was. Remember I told
This
you
is
about,
tough. This is a tough target.
about that record now?
If you touch a little bit of the black, it's
Yeah,
still.
but he's touching the, yeah.
But he's touching the little thing.
22.
You get 10 if you're touching the tiny
Okay,
circle in the
okay,
center.
okay, a little done.
Why are smaller groups shot with centerfire rifles, like your 222s and your 6 PPCs, than rimfire rifles? But it is a fact. Centerfire shoots tighter groups than rimfire.
At longer
I
distances.
cannot find where it says what the world record is for a rimfire. I got a one, and guys were talking different things, 40,000, 30,000. Well, that ain't nothing. I don't think there's one out there that says, that'll give you the true, you're good on this computer stuff. If you find what the world record is on 22 at 50 yards, let me know. Because I don't know what it is. But I know centerfires has beat it. And like I said, it is now a Mike Schmidt or Steinert breaks world record. This was in the last 2 years at .0077. And he was using a 30 PPC. In other words, a necked up version of our best cartridge ever made. I believe they really nailed it. And it was in Texas, Denton, Texas. So Mac McMillan had the 1973 world record, and it was beaten in the last 2
That same guy
years.
builds the stocks?
Yes,
Builds a what?
The stocks?
yes.
I believe so.
I think
I believe it was.
I don't know if he's alive.
I don't know. Well, it's in the family, so it's still got the name. VLD, I said VLD was very low drag bullets, right?
Now, this one, all you
Oh,
gotta do is.
when he was saying that he never sized his, I'm getting back to this stuff, it's coming back to me. He never sized his cases. Well, you know what that means.
They're all 10, so
He fired it in the gun,
they're all
He's
touching
the
inside
one
the
that
black.
do that.
and all he did was use a Wilson cedar. Wilson cedars is just a hand-like thing. You can either use a thing to press them down with, or you can push them down by hand. So what he would do, he had his chamber set to where, when the case came out, just push that bullet right back in again. Put the powder in it, put the primer in it, push the bullet in it, use the Wilson die just to keep it aligned, and push it in. You're gonna say, well, how can that happen? Well, it can happen. At the same time he was doing that, this guy knows about he knows about the 219 zipper and 219 Donaldson Wasp. At that time, the 222s was breaking all these records. I was shooting those two calibers. And I was shooting them the same way. Didn't size my cases. That bullet went right in there. It's just like setting this thing up here for, there, just like that. Okay, set that up in there, push it in, close the bolt, it'll push that bullet right up to where it touches the lands. That's as far as it goes. But you don't want to try pulling that out, or you're going to have powder all over the place. But that's how he shot all of his records, not records, but all of his good groups with. And they only had a few guns that really shot in the 0.25s in a 22 PPC. And they only had a few that shot it in a 6mm. Not every gun that they shot did that. But those guns that did do it were consistently doing it. We're talking, I might get a group like that once in a while, you know. As a matter of fact, probably the best group that I've ever shot with a 22, no, with a 6mm PPC, the best that I remember was 0.26. They were shooting 0.25s consistently, like 4 or 5 times in a row. And he said, remember he said, the only way that you could change that is if you thumbed the gun. In other words, when I shoot, I do not touch the gun. I have a sandbag here, and I have one up here that'll help hold my finger. And I can't get in there now. But I get in there and I just have it barely touching my shoulder, or hardly touching my shoulder. And when I pull the trigger, that's called free recoil. You don't touch the gun. If you have a gun that is heavy, if you have a wide front on it, as you see here, I made this, and I put one on that Remington. This gun right here is a Remington. You would say that's a target rifle. We shoot up at Harry Jones. That's not a custom rifle. It's a factory rifle, and it is. It shoots really good though. But when I put that on there, just to give me my 2 3/4 or 3 inches to keep me level, that changes the whole ball game. Really, they should then say, "Okay, that's a custom rifle." I went ahead and shot in the custom class as it was, and that's the target I shot up there with at that time. But it's really not a custom rifle. The guy was interviewed that worked for Remington at the time they were building these guns. We shoot it down here, it's custom, right? Top class, fine, it's where it should be really down here. But he said, they were making these guns and they were really good guns. He says, but they didn't put any more effort into that gun than they did their other guns. They were on demand so much that people were calling for them, and they couldn't keep up with them, so they would make it sound like they were making it special for them. In fact, there weren't. It was just a perfect, the action, one of the best actions there is, and it shot good. But there's nothing custom about it. They didn't make custom barrels and put on or do anything other than make the gun. But, so some places they know that, and they let me shoot that in the factory, as long as that's not attached. Well, I got smart. If I wanted to do that, I got a couple of my guns where I made that. I made one of these here. Now this is kind of a big clumsy thing. Make that thing and put saran wrap around, put some epoxy in there. When I close that up, that little saran wrap will go down in that hole, make a little bubble, and I put that on there, and it stays with the gun. It won't come off. So theoretically, if you pick that gun up, that better not be with it, or you're in another class.
Hey, Bob.
But if not,
Scott, American Rimfire